Hello, this is Demetrius Leach, Dr. Weaver, for Project 6 in IDT 7060 Fall Semester 2014. Um, I'll get into the pictures I have here in a quick second. But first, I want to talk about my learners. I teach ninth through 12th grade world history and geography at Raleigh Egypt High School here in Memphis. It's an urban school in Raleigh area. My students they range in age from 14 to 18, but the majority of them are ninth graders. So they're between about 14 and 15 years old. We have low literacy rates. The TVAS data from them coming in as eighth graders, their eighth grade TCAP literacy scores were about 15.6% proficiency. So I knew that that was going to be an issue. And to help with that, I try to differentiate instruction as much as possible. They learn best visually and also kinesthetically. That's their best learning style, and that's been figured out over four common formative assessments that Mr. Trainham and I have given. He's the other world history and geography teacher. And through four common formative assessments, we have found out that they learn best visually and kinesthetically. So they are my audience. The setting is going to be two places. This is going to be a 4-day lesson. Days 3 and 4 will be in the classroom, and day 2 will be in the computer lab. Because I only had 3 computers in my classroom to accommodate up to 32 students. I think I have in 6th period. So we'll be doing the actual PowerPoint in the computer lab. Now the context or how I want to teach this is, like I said, I want to differentiate it. So I'll be using some graphic organizing, multimedia concepts, videos, handouts, and also there'll be an oral presentation. And one of the strategies, or let's talk about first how it aligns with the curriculum. Um, Tennessee State Standard W23 is the first standard for World War One, and what the standard says is evaluate, or the student will evaluate primary source documents while analyzing the role of political and economic rivalries, ethnic and ideological conflicts, domestic discontent, disorder, propaganda. That's going to be the lesson, World War One propaganda especially, and nationalism and mobilizing the civilian population and leading to the outbreak of World War One. So what the students are going to learn with this lesson, or what the goal of this lesson is for them to understand how governments mobilize not just the military but also the civilian population as well. How to get them motivated to uh, really be okay with the killing of a lot of people. So that's the angle that I want them to look at, and not necessarily in this lesson, but somewhere that we could go with it is they aren't old enough to see how the war in Afghanistan and the war in Iraq was sold to us. But if something does start off with either Russia or Syria or any of those countries that we seem to be having an issue with right now, then that is something that we can connect to where we are right now with in history with them in their lifetime. Okay, so that's how it goes with the curriculum. Some other goals, though, is I want the students to be creative. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to use PowerPoint, to let them have a little fun with it, put some of their creativity in it. Um, and also, I want them to learn the content, of course, because social studies is a content driven course. So I want them to learn that and also get some new skills, some efficacy in speaking in front of their uh, classmates, and also just in putting together a presentation. And what I would expect is when we first do it, a lot of paragraphs. Um, so just teaching them how to use PowerPoint as a presentation tool instead of uh, just something where they get up in front of people and start reading off of it. So in the past, that's what I got when we first looking at PowerPoint. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. The and here's the design here. Now day one will incorporate the first learning strategy, which is modeling, because day one will begin with me showing them how to use the primary source analysis tool that you see here on the left. The tool is very valuable because it's going to teach them, it's really going to just make it easier for them to break this down. The first part is the observation. The first column where it simply says observe. We will, as a class, look at Rosie the Riveteer that you see over here on the right on the PowerPoint and just say what we see. So one of the observations I always get with Rosie the Riveteer is she's got her sleeves rolled up. So you see down in the notes part, that's where the instruction will be for them to put down in the notes section their analysis. So the observations will be there and also the reflections. The questions will also be there. I hadn't put that on there, but they'll also do it. So the first time that we do it, each student will have a copy of the primary source analysis tool so they can do it physically then. Because like I said, they are kinesthetic learners. So them being able to actually write it down and actually see it and feel it, that'll help them out. They'll also be able to visually see up on the board, on the smart board, the picture itself with Rosie the Riveteer over here on the right. So observation first, and that'll be a class discussion where we open it up and just let the students say what they see. Now the reflection part is going to be a little bit more thought-provoking. The students actually on this primary source analysis tool, if they flip it over on the back, it asks them about 15 different questions to help them through reflection. The back of this tool asks them who is the audience, what would be the purpose, where would you see this advertisement, who would it be intended for, how effective would it be, if you were within this demographic, say a female in 1918, would this motivate you to want to help out with the war effort? So it asks about 10 or 15 different questions to help them reflect, and that's going to be valuable as well. And then at the end, the third column, they simply ask any questions that they still have. Okay. Now the second part of this day one will be me showing them 4 videos of 4 quick short commercials that I pick out. It'll be 1 cartoon commercial, a video game commercial, a political ad, and a beer ad. And ask them how do you, one of the main guiding question with the commercials will be, how do you focus on a demographic? Okay, so we'll watch that, and then the exit ticket for that day will be, what did you learn? So as they leave, they'll just hand me, I tell them to just tear off a strip of paper so they won't waste too much paper. So they just tear off a strip of paper. Today I learned this, okay? And that brings me to day 2. Day 2 will be in the computer lab actually doing the PowerPoint. So here we're getting into their use of technology, because day 1 I did use the technology myself by modeling, but day 2 they will use it themselves. The students have a pretty good working knowledge of PowerPoint, but like I said earlier, the way they use it is they just pile on the paragraphs. So here the instruction will be to find 5 World War I propaganda posters and then analyze them in the notes section with your observation, your reflection, and your question columns. Okay, so that'll take up day 2, and then days 3 and 4 will be oral presentations where each student will have. Actually, let me step back just a quick second here. Before they leave in day 2, every day I have a 10-minute alarm that signals me. It actually rings my cell phone 10 minutes before class is over. At that 10-minute mark, all of them will stop and then go ahead and email me uh, the PowerPoints, and the next day, days 3 and 4, when they do their presentation, I'll simply have the PowerPoints already fired up and ready. So when they get to class that day, just in the order that they submitted, that'll be the order that they go and present. Now the learning theory, there's two learning theories that I focused on with this lesson. The first is Bandura's modeling, because I have to scaffold a lot of what I do, because even some of the stuff like PowerPoint that they have a small working knowledge with, they still don't use it right. Like I said, they just pile on paragraphs instead of like this PowerPoint that I have here on the right, just the title across the top and the picture. That's all we need, and then they can make the observations down in the notes section. It's real simple, and it gets them moving through the PowerPoint better, and it also gets them to address their audience instead of just sitting there reading off the PowerPoint. Also, is Piaget's constructivism. Usually what I do the first day that, or when we do PowerPoint, is I always show them how to click on the start menu and then go down to the tutorial on PowerPoint. So what that does with the constructivism, it basically teaches the student how to keep going themselves. So that way they won't need prompts from me. They can go on PowerPoint if they have a question. They know where to go to try to find the answer before they have to come to me. So if they are at home doing a PowerPoint or somewhere where me or some other teacher aren't there to help them, the student can become the teacher. Okay. And then of course the last part with technology and multimedia. One of the multimedia concepts that the principle of graphic design from the textbook that I push the most with them on this lesson, or I would push the most on this lesson, is tutorial. Like I was just saying, there is a tutorial on PowerPoint that can help them anytime they need help. Also, it's not web-based, but it is a tutorial, or at least a guide, what I was saying earlier with the reflection section on the primary source tool analysis. And then also email. They will submit their lessons via email. Okay, then like I said, the email can just be pulled up and they can go off of there. And finally, just reflecting on this class, even though I wasn't really good at the HTML, I still tried it one more time because I want to incorporate technology into my classroom, because they gravitate toward that. And that's one thing that I really took away from it. And I was just talking to, I think it was my second period class last week, about how I struggled with the lesson on HTML. And so I ended up pulling it up on the smartboard and just kind of tinkering around with it. So they were all engaged with it. So going forward, that'll be something that I definitely include in my lesson plans. I have to play around with that a little bit more. But the other multimedia concept tutorial, that's something that when they know where to go get it, they'll go find it. So that's also another principle of the graphic design that I talked about. And then also font. Another issue that I saw on PowerPoints in the past is students who make a font where you can't see it, or because of the coloring, or a font that's too big or too small or just not professional. So those were some takeaways that I got from this semester. I really enjoyed the class, and I really enjoyed doing this final project here, because I had seen a teacher use this before and said I would do it, and I finally did. So thank you, Dr. Weaver, and have a good next few weeks and a Merry Christmas. Thank you.